Welcome back. The path to a ceasefire in the Middle East is anything but straightforward. High-stakes negotiations are colliding with hardening positions as Washington signals frustration and Tehran raises the bar for any deal. President Donald Trump's dissatisfaction with Iran's latest proposals underscores a widening gap, one that goes beyond timing and into the core of the crisis itself. Iran, for its part, is demanding more than a pause in hostilities, insisting on lasting guarantees and a resolution to what it sees as the root causes of the conflict. At the center of it all, the Strait of Hormuz has once again emerged as a powerful bargaining tool where security and geopolitics intersect. Are we on the brink of a breakthrough or edging closer to a deeper confrontation? We'll be back with more on this after the break. Iran says it remains in a state of war as negotiations over the strategic Strait of Hormuz falter, while regional leaders push for de-escalation and violence continues to flare across multiple fronts. More on this story with Usama Ayati.
Tensions across the Middle East remain high as diplomatic efforts struggle to gain traction, with Iran signaling that it still considers itself in a state of war and key regional flashpoints showing little sign of de-escalation. This comes as an Iranian army spokesperson stated that the country remains in a war situation, underscoring Tehran's hardline stance amid ongoing negotiations. Central to the impasse is the Strait of Hormuz, where a significant portion of the world's oil supply passes.
Regarding the current situation, we have not considered the war to be over. From the day the fighting stopped and in effect a ceasefire or silence took place on the battlefield, since there is no trust in the United States and our enemies, we have continued in the same way as during the war, making serious efforts to update our list of targets.
The issue is expected to dominate discussion as Gulf leaders convene in Saudi Arabia for high-level talks aimed at preventing further escalation. Meanwhile, in Washington, President Donald Trump's national security team is reviewing the proposal from Iran that could mark a potential turning point. The plan reportedly includes a halt to ongoing hostilities and the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz to international shipping. However, it notably calls for postponing discussions surrounding Iran's nuclear program, an issue that has long been a cornerstone for U.S. policy towards Tehran.
Iran's lawful measures aim to strike an appropriate balance between security interests of the coastal state and the continued safe conduct of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz.
Elsewhere in the region, violence continues to simmer along the Lebanese border. Despite an April 17 ceasefire agreement, Zionist forces and Hezbollah have resumed trading fire, raising concerns that the truce is rapidly unraveling. The convergence of these crises, maritime tensions and the Gulf, stalled diplomacy and renewed clashes in Lebanon paints a picture of a region on edge. While diplomatic channels remain open, the competing priorities and deep mistrust among key actors continue to hinder progress toward a comprehensive resolution.
And to break all this down, joining me in the studio, Mr. Abdel Toumi, geopolitical analyst and MENA MENA affairs expert. Thank you for being here with us, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for having me on the program.
Our pleasure, sir. And remotely, I'm also joined by Mr. Mohammed Chris Sassi, geopolitical and financial analyst based in New York. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you for the invite and my regard to the team and specifically my friend and brother, Dr. Toumi.
Mm-hmm. And let me start with Mr. or Dr. Abdel Toumi. Iran's stance remains central to the evolving diplomatic standoff. I mean, how significant is Iran's declaration that it remains in a war situation in shaping the current diplomatic landscape?
Actually, since the phase of this war has entered into this dynamic of neither peace nor war, but it cannot last longer for both parties because at the end it has to break through as a result of its impact on a global economy and also for the neighboring countries and as well as for the both parties for Iran, who has been hit severely, but even though it did succeed to some extent by absorbing the shock of the first week and first 2 weeks of the 40 days war, in which has changed the parameter of this war. On the other hand, the US cannot continue on this because it has already the ramifications and the impacts of this war on domestic politics and economics. And we saw how now this war has impacted the American people when it comes to the fuel, the cost of this war, and it comes to the high price of the fuel, and that had led to the high price of the gas. And having said that, Americans are also, actually this is the time factor in which will lead to the next stage, which it will be the next coming months, coming to the summer, and these Americans pay too much attention to this because it's summer vacation. And in the US, we saw how the mobility of the American peoples, how they move from state to state, and for instance, from the west coast to the east coast, or to the north, Pacific Northwest to the south, and so on. And all this needs mobility. Therefore, when we speak about mobility, here we are talking about energy, and we talk about energy, we're talking about gas. And this is, it hits a great deal the American pocket, and this is, it's not going to work favorably for the American president, Mr. Donald Trump, who is also, who will be having a midterm elections in fall, in next November. And all these dynamics of this war are not in favor on both parties, because at the end, again, plus, as I stated, this war has already impacted the global economy, and this is why now all the experts and observers are following these moves from these talks in which both sides are still rigid on their bases, and everybody is defending, or every party is defending its base. But I think it needs to break through. But this is going to be a tough challenge for diplomacy. But again, this is it cannot continue for escalation. It has to be discreet. But right now, or at the moment we're speaking, it's hard to predict what's going to happen in the next 24 hours or 36 hours ahead.
Mm-hmm. Let me turn to Mr. Mohammed Krisasi. Mr. Sassi, the United States confirmed it is studying recent Iranian proposals regarding the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz in this point. What specific factors is the White House weigh in as it studies Tehran's latest offer on the strait?
Well, the factor is in the White House, it's actively discussing the proposal internally, but several keys concern are shaping its response regarding what they are saying and the report that I can read. Number one is the credibility and trust. Officials are skeptical about Iran, as well as Iran is skeptical about America, and they have, the spreadsheet why 2 or 3 times about, the ceasefire, and then they are not going to attack. They give them 10 days and they bombard them after 2 days, so on and so forth. You have a question of credibility. But also the term for reopening the Strait of Hormuz. The US is examining whether open truly means free negotiation or condition access under Iranian control. And this is one of the issues they are discussing. It's not a problem of semantic. Now is a real problem, and Iran, of course, doesn't want that. He doesn't want to be under the control of America. They said this is our international water, and we want to be in full charge of it. And of course, Trump tried this before, but it was not country with who we have worked. If you read about the Panama Canal, the strait over there, and it's same thing. But again and again, that's not going to happen under their condition. And then you have also the sequencing, as I said, of the negotiation. Iran wants to delay nuclear talks until after the maritime issue are resolved, which the US view as problematic. And that is the strategic leverage for handing the blockade to. And then, of course, the administration is waiting whenever the proposal is a genuine or it's a ramp to gain sometimes. But I think the President Trump doesn't know exactly what he wants, because if from the beginning it was about the Iran nuclear power, and then now is the Strait of Hormuz have to be free, and now he's the one who's blocking it. So I don't understand, like many of my peers, why is this kind of mistrust and misstrategic and miscalculation? In the morning he's going to say something, and then we are going to work on it, and then he's going to be no, we are not going to Pakistan, you stay here, and the next day say yes, we are going to do it. And it's very, very difficult to negotiate when you don't have the trust. Whatever is the strategy that Trump have in mind, so far it didn't work yet.
Let me turn back to you, Mr. Toomey. Conflicting priorities seem to define the current standoff. Why is Iran linking the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz to the postponement of the nuclear program talks?
Actually, it's very interesting, because what happened here, it's the dynamic of this conflict, of this war, in which it started with the Iran nuclear program and missile ballistic, and also regime change, and pushing Iran to actually trim Iran's wings from having its resistance axis and the non-state axis, like for instance Hezbollah and Ansar al-Islam and Hashd al-Sha'bi in Iraq. So all these 3 or 4 points didn't achieve by the aim of this war. I mean, leading this illegal war, aggression, the Americans and the Zionist entity on Iran. So it didn't achieve at all. So since the war has changed in course of the last 40 days, so now we found ourselves in this element or crisis, a maritime crisis of the Strait of Hormuz. So, and Iran is using this card because it is a winning card. It is using it to pressure further the other party when it comes to negotiations. Right now, we're not in negotiations yet. We are just there are just talks to break through for eventually negotiations that will end the war, and therefore the Iranians will actually, that we are asking. And as days goes, so the Iranians are showing some teeth. And this is why it's making the US administration and President Trump himself, like I think there was some news report today, they were saying he was frustrated. I understand that, because he put the bar too high and he didn't reach any of those aims, goals of his war. Actually, this war of choice that now more than 70% of Americans are against it. And by the way, it is not his war. It is the Zionist entity Prime Minister Wars who handed it to President Donald Trump to deal with it right now. So this is why now we are in this dynamic of like a chess game, and it's an arm wrestling and waiting for the one who will scream first. But the Americans are having also other leverage by trying to squeeze further the Iranians and hurt them economically. Nonetheless, the Iranians also are having this resistance and resilience when it comes to economic sanction, because right now we moved from this military, illegal military operation to an economics war, and now to this economics war that it has sanctions on the Iranians, in which the Iranians did succeed or excel how to manage this and have and causing a global, its impact has become globally. Therefore, this war that has now is extended actually regionally and now is globally.
Let me include you, Mr. Mohammed Krissasi, in this point as we're talking about the delay in the nuclear talks over the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Mr. Mohammed Krissasi, the White House emphasized that Donald Trump's red lines regarding Iran are now crystal clear to everyone. What exactly are President Trump's red lines in here, and when it comes to Iran's nuclear program and its actions in the Gulf?
Well, it's nothing new on these red lines. Trump is just in the continuation of Israel Netanyahu since 40 years. Every General Assembly at the UN, he come in 2 weeks, they are going to have the nuclear weapon. And this since 40 years and never happened. It was proved from the agency of the United Nations that Iran was not having any program regarding the nuclear weapon. But it was the excuse from the beginning, nuclear power. And then we come to change of regime. And then, as my dear friend said, now we are in global economic world trade. But just to answer your question on the nuclear weapon, Trump is very, very clear in all his stupidity. He said that no nuclear for Iran. Iran should not have the nuclear bomb. And it's always repeating that. But how would like you to Iran accept that? They can't, because they didn't have it and they come and bombard them. As I said many times, and I'm going to say it again, Iran was always the enemy that you have to try to enslave, to try to submit to the will of America. And I always said, I will repeat it, 1953, Mossadegh, 1979, 2008, 2025, the 12-day wars, and today we are where we are with this war, which we always said is Iran United States war. No, it's not Iran United States war. This is a war initiated by Netanyahu for reason that they want to take away, not to take away, it's not the right word, to run away from his problem that he have in Israel for corruption and fraud. And now he convinced Trump with his big ego to do the same, but Trump also want to get rid away from the Epstein file, and this is why today we have a war of choice, not a war of necessity. But and they talk about the nuclear weapon capability of Iran. But Iran have a fatwa saying that they cannot and they should not pursue the search of nuclear power, military, I mean. And they still say, no, they are doing it. They talk about, this uranium enrichment. The US insists that Iran cannot have it. And they even go further. 2 weeks ago, they say, we are going to get it. It's like, you have to call Uber and then they will make the pickup. Unfortunately, Iran is not Venezuela. You are not going to go there and overnight attack the regime. Number one, it's not a question of regime for one man. We saw that, they killed many of their leaders. And the idea and the resilience of Iran is always there because they are ready for it since 40 years. And then how broadly we are going to listen to them? They said that they want a dismantlement of Iran nuclear power. Nuclear power, Iran doesn't have any. And on the top of it, if you remember, Pakistan said that if Iran would like to have the nuclear power, we can provide it to them. It was just a metaphor, meaning that, they don't need it, and if they need it, they don't have to do the search in their own land, you can provide it to them. So when you listen on all of this, and you look at the chronology of this war, I don't see any clear path to hand it, and is no winner. Don't forget the first victim of this war. The first victim, they were 140 girls that they were bombarded by the American and the Israeli together. So I don't understand when they say they want to have what you call it, the red line. They are the one who are crossing the red line each and every time. Each and every time they come with something new. As I said, I will repeat myself. Number one, it was for the nuclear power. Now, after it was a change of regime. And now, as Dr. Toumi was saying, we are to the global war, trade war. China is not anymore on the side. 3 days ago, or 4 days ago, they were doing exercise, naval exercise in the sea, the China Sea, with who? With Russia, Iran, and China. And China sent a message very, very clear. They don't talk about the nuclear weapon. They said, look, we have to protect our sourcing of energy to make our economy keep going on. And you are not going to stop our boat in the Detroit of Hormuz. And in fact, China still navigate through the Detroit of Hormuz, and Trump cannot do anything about it because again and again, after all this distraction, after all this rhetoric, after all this threatening to wipe the civilization of 5,000 years, etc., Iran is still there. And Iran, even if they have a boycott, Iran doesn't work only with the Occidental country. We have Asia, we have Africa, and all of them, they're still doing business with Iran. So I don't know broadly what they want to do. If we are going to see Trump, he's very dissatisfied with what's going on now because he knows that he's losing it. He's no winner in this war. Again and again, I'm saying that. He's no winner. But, you know, Iran's still there. And despite all the talks, oh, they don't have naval, they don't have industry, we destroy everything, they're still there and they still fight, they're still resilient. And this is why Iran, to take the metaphor of my dear friend, Dr. Toumi, is not a poker game. This is a poker metaphor. Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Mohammed Karisasi, you talked about an important point. I mean, earlier, at the heart of the dispute lies disagreement over sequencing, as Mr. Mohammed Karisasi is just, mentioned earlier. Dr. Abdel Toumi, the Wall Street Journal and CNN report that Iran has proposed a phased plan beginning with a ceasefire and deferring nuclear talks to a later stage. A sequence Washington views with skepticism in this point. Does Washington interpret Iran's phased proposal as a tactical maneuver or move rather than a genuine diplomatic breakthrough?
Actually, it is important from day one of these talks and since the trust that has been going on the last 10 days. But then one has to go beyond that and before that. And there is a key element here is the trust. And there is no such a thing between the US and the Iranians and Iran when it comes to trust. And this is why the Iranians now, as I stated previously, so they did absorb the shock and they to some extent surmount the humiliation. So now they are in this moment, actually it's a historic moment for the regime, because for the Iranian regime, the Islamic Republic of Iran leadership, is about survival. And it's not only about survival, it's also about existence. And this is why they know well how to manage those talks and how to push actually attentively and to corner the other side, the US negotiation team, who is not coherent. Because again, that's just what happened last weekend, and there were news reports that the President Donald Trump, he was sending his negotiation team and his special two envoys, Mr. Witkoff and Kushner, to Islamabad, but then he didn't send them. And meanwhile, the Iranian Foreign Policy, Dr. Araghchi, who did actually make a visit to Islamabad, and then he went to Muscat, and then Amman, and he went back to Islamabad, and then he flew to Moscow. So all these dynamic, or all these mobilities are actually creating this skepticism for the Americans, because the Americans actually publicly they are talking, it's a rhetoric, talking about capitulation and surrender, in which the Iranians, they will never do that. Then I think the Americans now, they start to get that, they start to understand that this will never happen. Meanwhile, they are using the economic sanction card, and notably on this economic blockade on the Hormuz Strait. But this is, I think, this team or the President Donald Trump negotiation team or advisors are not thinking strategically, because the Iranians have actually survived the economic sanctions for now almost 5 decades, and this is not going to happen. So this is why we will see this in the coming days.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Abdel Noor Toumi. Unfortunately, we are short in time. We reached the end of our special tonight. Thank you for all of your insights, and as well as thank you, Mr. Mohammed Krissasi, for all of your insights. The ceasefire everyone wants is still buried under mutual distrust and maximum demands. No one's blinking yet. But with global energy markets watching and diplomacy hanging by a thread, the question isn't whether talks will resume, it's whether they will survive. The coming days will shape the next chapter of this crisis. Thank you for watching. Good night.